I was 20, I climbed Mount Royal in Canada with some friends, and we did some LSD. And I was under a tree, and it was a life-changing moment because I suddenly experienced, like raw experienced, I saw this tree breathe, and I saw that it was alive. It was a moment that changed everything. And for me, that repeating uh, that symbol of the tree has always been what has led me through life.
Eva Rider has had a long therapeutic private practice. It's based on the psychotherapy initiated by the radically innovative and influential work of Swiss psychologist Carl Jung, which has helped people to expand their lives and heal. Eva Rider is a licensed psychotherapist in California, based in Santa Cruz. She has a BA in history from McGill University in Canada. She has an MA in clinical psychology from John F. Kennedy University. She also trained in psychotherapy with the Canadian Marion Woodman, an important disciple of Jung who developed her own influential work. Eva Rider has taught seminars at the Jung Institute near Zurich in Switzerland, and she is taught as adjunct faculty at John F. Kennedy University. The psychologist Carl Jung was immensely curious, but his curiosity was directed towards psychic life, directed inwards towards psychic life rather than outwards to nature and society. Jung studied occult literature, myths, mysticism, and dreams, including his own dreams. This inward curiosity was a path to healing, as Jung and Woodman discovered. This inwardness in Jung is also a connection to all of humanity. Jungian psychotherapy takes into consideration a division of psychic life into the realms of the conscious and the unconscious. In this psychotherapy, the unconscious psyche is also divided into the personal unconscious and the collective unconscious of all humanity. This means that the psychic life of an individual human being is both personal and yet also connected to a universal shared human awareness, which is found in spirituality, dreams, myths, and rituals. For that reason, the psychotherapy that Eva Rider practices ranges across the spectrum of alchemy, astrology, tarot, dreams, and the Hermetic tree of life to heal and to improve the lives of individuals. How has Eva Rider taken this path of curiosity in her life and career, and what has she discovered? Let's find out from her. So here's a question. What role does curiosity play in your life and your therapy?
It's a wonderful question. Um, Thank you so much for that, Sean. I think curiosity, of course, is at the heart of therapy because we are, that's how we work even with dreams, is we're asking questions. And Jung spoke of this as well, as we really don't know. I mean, especially I do a fair amount of dream work, and it's always challenging to not fall into interpreting and to remember that we really don't know. Um, and Jung was very clear about that. I think I'm paraphrasing now about we really don't know. So we're having to approach with curiosity. Similarly, I think with any human being, we really don't know because there's so much that is projection. how we are mostly projecting on from our own lens onto that person's reality. So it becomes really necessary to come from a place of the place of not knowing. Um, yeah.
How conscious are you of your own curiosity?
Yeah, it's another great question. Well, this is the self-reflection, and probably not as much as I might be. I've been journaling since I was 17, and that's been a great, great help. It's been a lifesaver because when I'm really lost, then I can turn to my journal and ask myself those questions when there isn't anyone else to hear me. But so I'm also overwhelmed by my curiosity because there's so much to learn in the course of our lifetime, and we realize as we get older that there's less time to to really understand it all. Um, I think that I've lived a very some people might say chaotic life because I followed kind of this thread that has led me from one place to another. And I think to a large extent, it's curiosity battling with fear, insecurity about where is this going to lead. But ultimately, curiosity is what definitely points the path forward, and learning. I mean, learning is I remember T.H. White saying in The Once and Future King that when all else fails, remember that learning is the one thing that can save us. So I think curiosity is yeah, the most important thing, although it can be dangerous. Okay.
Exactly. I'll get to that part in a minute. Um,
Okay.
so the journaling, it sounds as though the journal was a vehicle for your curiosity, maybe an introspective type. So, how did journaling change and affect your curiosity? How would it be different if you hadn't written a journal?
Well, the journaling is a reflective tool. Originally, when I started to journal, and this is personal, I started to journal on, my father died when I was 12. And I began to journal on when I was 17 on the anniversary of his death, primarily because I had no one to talk to at that time. And because I was 17, I didn't know. So I originally wrote to my father, and then I started to write to Holden Caulfield, as ridiculous as that may sound. And then because I was 17, and I have all these journals. So when I look back, a lot of them were just me expounding on, going through my growing phases, and the early journals are ridiculous. But over time, they started to go deeper. They started to be this deeper spiritual quest of discovering meaning. What is meaning? And I think that now that we're talking about that, that is the basically the core of all of it is the search for meaning, um, in a world that so often seems so meaningless.
You started journaling when you were 17, at the anniversary of your father's death. Does that mean that before you were journaling and while your father was alive, your father was somehow connected to your curiosity?
Definitely. What a wonderful question. Indeed. My father was a scholar, and my father, excuse me, was endlessly curious. Um, he was a translator of language, And yes, he was definitely, as Marion Woodman used to say, if I was a father's daughter, and my father was always the one I went to um, for learning. So that was really important. And I was really and opened the door to reading, because of course reading became um, a great gift. Also, English wasn't my first language. I was born in Hungary, and so it was learning to read and English was absolutely life transforming. And so for most of my life, I was never without a book, and that was very much connected to that curiosity. Um, was constantly fed by the imagination.
It sounds that unlike some households where the adults prohibit curiosity, where they're unwilling to talk about themselves,
Mm.
um, your father helped open that up. When you look at the curiosity of your father, was it the same kind of character of curiosity as you have now, or is your curiosity have a different character?
Yeah. Well, I think that my father was an atheist. And so I think it has become a very different character. Um, and if we got into the personal story, I was an atheist after my father died for from the age of 12 till I was 20. And when I was 20, I climbed Mount Royal in Canada with some friends, and we did some LSD. And I was under a tree, and it was a life changing moment because I suddenly experienced, like raw experienced, I saw this tree breathe, and I saw that it was alive. And I remember I went home to my journal and I wrote, I never have to write again because I have found God. And of course, that's absurd. But for that moment, it changed. It was a moment that changed everything. And for me, that repeating that symbol of the tree has always been what has led me through life.
Hmm. Gautama also had his revelation under a tree, as you know. We could start talking about trees and inspiration and revelation. Um, that the moment you had taking LSD under the tree, were you able to have that moment again in your life without LSD?
Well, what I was, yes. I mean, there were a series. It opened a portal. Let me put it that way. It opened the portal, and as I think it was Alan Watts who said, when you get the message, hang up the phone. So of course that's not. I no longer have to take LSD to for that portal. So now I use the diagram. I mean, I use the tree itself and actually embodying the tree, which brings in some of my Marion's work for me. Um, I would say um, yes. And it's an experience. I mean, life became very intense, and trying to find that thread, that golden thread, or that red thread that Jung speaks about, I think is at the heart of it. But, my life was very much about experience, even though I'm an introvert. So sometimes it's terrifying, but experience has been the greatest teacher, I think. And because of that abyss experience, um, I I had to find it's an experience of falling, falling endlessly, and it's an abyss experience. So it's so terrifying that I had to learn what happens after you come through the black hole. Where do you land? So I think it's been very powerful because it's about death and transformation.